I'm with Daniel Seaman from the Ministry of Public Diplomacy and Diaspora Affairs. Now, Daniel, what is this?
It's the ministry that handles the public diplomacy, the image, or projecting the image of Israel, or presenting the state of Israel to the international community. The diaspora affairs aspect is another element which deals with the Jewish communities around the world, both on the public diplomacy level, but mostly on the interests, the mutual interests that Israel and the Jewish people have.
Now, how is Israel seen around the world?
Well, you'll have to tell me. There is, well, let's put it this way. Very plainly, the way Israel is presented, or the way the information people receive, is based on how the international media covers. And for a very long time, the international media had been concentrating, I would say, disproportionately on what is happening here compared to other places in the world. There were more foreign media stationed in Israel over the past 30, almost 40 years than any place else in the world, covering it most intensively, but also concentrating on perhaps only one aspect, or mostly on one aspect, and that is the Palestinian-Israeli issue. Some people call it conflict. I don't accept the word conflict because there is no conflict here. There is one side, the Palestinians, who have constantly not accepted Israel's right to exist. It's been said before that if if the Palestinians lay down their weapons, the Arabs lay down their weapons, we'll have peace. If Israel lays down its weapons, there'll be a massacre. So the question is, when they talk about conflict, if the other side is willing to accept our existence here, there will be no conflict. So when the media concentrates on that one aspect of it, and in this perspective, Israel being victorious in the attempts to destroy it, controlling a significant Palestinian population because of the circumstances, not because of Israel's desire to occupy them, but because of the fact that the Arab countries have assaulted Israel and not accepted Israel's existence here. The perspective is of Israel being an occupier. The Palestinians have been very good at using the terminology of human rights, etc., against Israel under these circumstances. And when journalists or the media can't give a broader perspective of things, what you hear on a daily basis is the negativity, Israeli occupation, the Palestinians under occupation, and people don't really go into all the details. So if going back this whole explanation to the point of your question is that Israel is perceived in negative terms because of the circumstances, without people fully understanding what is really the essence of what is going on here. And other aspects of Israel, other things that represents the true face of the state of Israel does not get enough time, and therefore you have a perception of Israel being a very tough country, as the BBC, in a poll that it conducted, accused Israel as being one of the countries undermining stability in the world. But when you know a little more about the state of Israel, you see it's a small country that has tremendous contributions to humankind, only these things don't receive media exposure.
Now, there is the Palestinian issue, which you've already mentioned. And do you think that there is a lot of misinformation about the history of the land?
Absolutely. There's tremendous, not only misinformation, it's deliberate misconceptions and an abuse of the historical facts, because people don't have, it's been a long time, it's been 64 years since the establishment of the State of Israel. People don't know about the background. People have, based on the little that they hear from the media, have a perception that Israel sort of took away a state that existed here among the Palestinians and destroyed their nation. There was no Palestinian nation before 1964. People criticized Newt Gingrich for saying that the Palestinians are an invented people. Well, every people is an invented people to some degree, but when you come down to it, you look back at the 64 years ago with the decision of the United Nations to create two states in this region here. One was a Palestinian state, basically for the Jews. The Jews were considered the Palestinians, whereas the Arab state was the other side, and the Palestinians considered themselves, those who call themselves Palestinians today, 64 years ago, were part of the Arab collective. And they refused to accept that because they said, no, this whole region belongs to them. Though in the past there had been no independent Arab presence in this area in the 2,000 years since Jews were expelled here from this area by the Romans. As you can see already, when I go into this explanation, there's a lot of information, a lot of things. But simply put, the Palestinians today exist. Israel recognizes and accepted, and every government in Israel has accepted their right to self-determination. What we would like to happen is finally the Arabs and the Palestinians accept the Jewish right to self-determination, meaning understanding that we have a right to establish an independent presence in this area. The state that we have established, they should accept it, and accept it as a Jewish state. Why do we say that? Why are we stressing this need? Because it's not enough of creating a Palestinian state. Once that state is created, we have to believe, and we have to get the assurances that they'll have no more requirements. They'll have no more demands. They cannot demand that Palestinians return to the areas which are considered the Jewish state, because that will perpetuate the conflict instead of ending it. What Israel wants is a cessation of the violence and an end to the conflict. We don't want to make concessions to the Palestinians and they continue putting on demands on Israel, and we have to constantly be in a situation of conflict with them.
Well, we've seen that in Gaza, haven't we, where Israel actually, they left Gaza, they left it to the Palestinians, and then there's been rockets ever since, so...
Absolutely. In the past, I've been working on behalf of the State of Israel and its public diplomacy for 28 years. And I remember very clearly 28 years ago the certain truths that we were told. And the truths were that if Israel recognizes the PLO, the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, we'll have peace. The condition was do these things and you'll have get these peace as a result. The other one was recognize Palestinian right to self-determination, cede territory, dismantle settlements, fulfill UN resolutions. Well, if you look over the past 25 years, you can see that Israel not only recognizes the PLO, accepted the Palestinian right to self-determination, created a Palestinian authority, ceded territory to the Palestinians, dismantled settlements in Gaza and in Samaria, withdrew from South Lebanon, fulfilling all UN resolutions. Yet the simple question is, has this brought us closer to peace? Has it brought us closer to resolving the differences that we have here? On the contrary, you see, from the moment Israel started making these concessions, violence has only expanded. You had terror in the streets of Israel. You have missiles coming from Gaza into Israel. What you have is a greater assault on the state of Israel. So Israelis today are more reluctant to take these risks. We want to believe, because they're no longer hypothetical or theoretical as they were 18 years ago when the Oslo agreements were signed. Today we know exactly what the consequences could be, and therefore we're far more cautious. We're willing to go to peace. We're willing to pursue it, but we have to have full assurances that this will not be used as a stepping stone to continue and have easier way of attacking the state of Israel.
Is this a Palestinian war, or is this an Islamic war?
It's a hard way. I would say it's an assault against anybody who is not Islamic creating a presence in the Middle East. It's the inacceptance. You have to understand there are other minorities besides the Jews in the Middle East. You have Copts in Egypt. You have the Kurds. You have Christians throughout the Middle East. There are many other. There are Syrians. There are many other non-Islamic sects in the Middle East. Yet the Jews are the only ones who have been able to establish or reestablish their independence in this region. And therefore, in every one of the Muslim countries, non-Islamic individuals and peoples do not have individual rights, do not have equal rights. So this is an extension of that. They don't accept the presence of non-Muslims anywhere in the Middle East. Therefore, the inacceptance of the State of Israel is something ingrained in the Muslim attitude. I don't know if it is an Islamic war, but the fact is that the inacceptance of the Jewish right to self-determination is inherent in the way the Muslims perceive their rights in the Middle East.
Now, you've served as an advisor and spokesman to the governments of Ariel Sharon, Ehud Barak, Benjamin Netanyahu, and many, many others. Now, what was it like for you serving with these leaders and your country?
Well, in 30 years, I've served several governments and several prime ministers. I'm a civil servant, so there have been times in the past where I withdrew from government when I felt uncomfortable or I did not feel that I could do a professional job in representing a particular government. But all in all, I found that most of the time the policies were ones that it was my role to present them and do a convincing job. And I think the fact that these governments continued employing me expresses the fact that I can do a professional job for them. Only unlike a lot of other Israelis, I have the American mentality. If you do not accept or you feel uncomfortable with certain policies, you get up and leave. I did that in the past, and I hope I don't have to do that in the future, but I do my job where I believe that I can best represent the country.
And you've been the director of the government press office. And do you think the press cover Israel fairly? And do they already have a bias before they even start?
Well, I referred to that a little previously. I I don't think it's presented accurately. I don't want to say fairly or not fairly. It's not accurate, and I don't think it's only there are objective reasons and subjective reasons for it. The objective reasons is that media and news reporting has not only been in the past, but it gradually has become that situation has become even worse, where media cannot cover events in a very professional or even accurate way today. First off, they concentrate on well, they call it, if it bleeds, it leads. I call it blood, sweat, and tears. The human emotions, and they're very limited in the scope, time and volume of what they can report. Things here are very complicated, very complex. News coverage does not have the opportunity today, and it's got worse. What I mean by getting worse over the history has been, if in, let's say, 20, 30 years ago, journalists had the time to sit down, verify sources, check information, you had a few days to cover a story. Then it turned about 10, 15 years ago into the 24-hour news cycle. They had to get information out there within 24 hours, still gave them time to verify sources. But today you have an immediate, you don't even have a 60-minute today with people with Twitter, with the news comes out or information comes out. People say things, people report things, and a true journalist doesn't have the ample time to sit, verify, check, cross-verify to see if what is happening is actually true. And by the time they put out a correction, a lot of things can happen. The other thing is the necessity is what I call the news frenzy, the feeding frenzy. When something happens and one group is reporting it and others start reporting it, they don't go into the details. So everybody, it takes on a life, an event may take on a life of its own and may not have any truth they may have some basis, but it becomes a whole story that has no truth in the realities. And journalists today, especially when issues of blood, sweat, and tears, are going to hop on a story that looks good, films good, and may not have any relevance. Maybe a tragedy at times, but the tragedy does not reflect on the greater issues. So in that sense, I think that the story here is not being told accurately, because what you have is a concentration on the emotional events, the human interest aspects of it, where in this case Israel is a very normal Western country. There's nothing unusual here that'll be newsworthy unless there's some tragedy. And so other facets of the Israeli society, its contributions to humankind, the fact that we are a country of 7 million alone in a very small area. You can cover the state of Israel from north to south within 4 hours drive. In this small area that has absorbed over half of its population are immigrants and refugees. Nobody knows about a Jewish refugee problem because we haven't turned it into a problem. We've turned it into a strength. And we've taken all these difficulties that we've had to encounter in 64 years and turned them into advantages. And so here's a country that in the midst of a economic depression worldwide, our economy is rather stable, very small unemployment. We've taken people from different races, different nations, different countries, even different religions. There are not only Jews in this country. And where in other places in the world this is a disadvantage, we've turned these into advantages. We've turned the characteristics of this country into ways of benefiting this country, where we're one of the leading countries in high-tech, in health, in agriculture, and we're exporting that knowledge. Not for benefit, mind you. It's not that the government makes a profit off of this. We're taking these inventions and these things that we've developed over 64 years to benefit our country and exporting it to third world countries, even to countries that don't have diplomatic relations with Israel. This aspect of the story is not told. This facet of the Israeli character does not get a lot of exposure. So what you have is the image of Israel, to a large degree in the world, is of a country, a militaristic country, ultra-religious, which is very funny because the debate in Israel, why don't the ultra-religious serve in the military? But the stereotype, and sometimes a very borderline anti-Semitic stereotype, is the ultra-Orthodox Israeli soldier abusing the poor Arab, where in reality, that is nothing further from the truth. Israel is a country that is very similar to other countries around the world. The population here is very modern, very Western. But when you have certain elements, such as the religious and their attitudes, or ultra-religious and their attitudes to women, for example, a story that occurred just recently, when the media concentrates on the fact that women are told to sit, or certain women, ultra-religious women are told in certain bus lines to sit in the back of the bus, something that is being addressed by the society in Israel. We're not a perfect society. No society is. But we address our problems. This gets international coverage. People aren't aware of the rest of Israel. They're just aware of this. So it's blown out of proportion. You think that, all women have to sit in the back of the buses in Israel, which is further from the truth. So that's what happens with media. When they concentrate on one thing, they blow it out of proportion. You get a disproportionate understanding of negative aspects of a society, and all the positives are not there. So you have people criticizing Israel as being a very backward country, violating human rights. Israel is accused of being an apartheid, which, by the way, is diminishing to the term apartheid, because anybody who comes here and sees that this is a society where Jew, Arab, Muslim, Christian can live together and share all rights of this society, then, if that's apartheid, so why would anybody think that apartheid was bad in South Africa? But people use this in order to defame and demean the state of Israel. And unfortunately, at times, the media helps solidify that image by omitting the other aspects of Israel.
So is this actually just ignorance, or is it anti-Semitism?
There is a large degree of ignorance, but people are generally ignorant about other places in the world. Now, Israel is a lot in the news, and because of the religious aspects of Christians, Muslims to a degree, but the Judeo-Christian heritage of the Western society does draw people to have a certain interest in what is going here more than other places in the world. And the presence, like I said, the disproportionate presence of journalists, more foreign press were located here than any place else in the world until the past few years. You have an abundance of information. So it's surprising that you would have ignorance, but if you take what I said just previously, that you have an inaccurate ability to report what is happening here, so people are misinformed to a large degree. You can criticize the state of Israel. It's legitimate to criticize us. I don't want to use I don't use the term anti-Semitism lightly, but when you have a situation where Israel is singled out for criticism, where Israel is the expectation, Israel's held to a different standard. Those are elements of old anti-Semitism. The Jew being held to a different standard, applying rules and differently to Jews. By applying it and doing the same thing to the state of Israel, you are in effect operating and using the same kind of behavior which was against Jews in the past. The anti-Semitism does play a certain role, but no, I don't think the media in general is anti-Semitic. It works in a particular way which I think does a disservice to Western societies. But what it does do is encourage at times the old anti-Semitic terms, and it lends them credibility, which is unfortunate. And especially when people are critical and singling out Israel for criticism, which it wouldn't apply elsewhere in the world. And I'll give you a small example to explain what I'm saying. When Israel is attacked, and it defends itself, this is understood. Any country in the world is allowed to defend itself. So when they can't criticize us on using military force to defend ourselves, and they talk about disproportionate use of force. The question is, what is the whole principle of deterrence, if not the fact that you have the military ability to defeat your enemies and you let them know that? So use of certain types of weapons that every Western military uses. When Israel uses it, we're criticized disproportionately, if you want to use the term the media uses against us. When Israel is singled out for certain behaviors, when Israel is expected to be perfect, and we can't make mistakes, and when mistakes are made, we are accused of doing it deliberately, these things have an anti-Semitic tone to them.
Now, you were in the IDF and served as an elite paratrooper. You're a veteran of the 1982 Lebanon War. Has your experiences helped you to get where you are today?
Well, it's part of my character, I guess, but basically, the first thing you learn in the military, keep your head down and your bottom down. I've had to do that over the years. I've learned to be careful of both enemy and friendly fire. No, it's part of our characters of every Israeli, anybody who serves and anybody around the world. And today you have a lot of young men and women who've served in Western militaries in combat, so I think they can understand very clearly what I'm talking about. It does create a certain character. It does affect your life. Some people, it affects them badly. I like to take anything that happened to me in my life and turn it into an advantage. So I think that it develops your character. It gives you strength of character. It puts things in perspective. It makes you understand what is important and not important in life. That's why some things, office politics, things like that, I don't really care about. Family is very important to me. Appreciating what you have in life. When you face death and you're in combat, you know how to appreciate things and not take anything for granted.
Now, with the threat of a nuclear build-up in Iran, where do you think you see Israel today? Do you think we'll go to war?
The Talmud says very clearly that after the fall of the Second Temple, prophecy was given to fools. So I have no intention of prophesizing. We are concerned with the nuclear buildup in Iran. We believe that it is not only a threat to Israel. We would be the first, I don't want to say victim because we will not be victims of the Iranians, but we would be the first target of Iran in that sense, but not the only one. We represent Western civilization to the Iranians, and I think that's what we've been trying to convey to Western society for a very long time, that it's not Israel's the excuse, it's not the reason. The reason is their battle with Western civilization. And therefore, the threat is not only towards Israel, it's to all humanity. And therefore, all humanity has to prevent a group of extremist radical clerics from obtaining the doomsday weapon. So this is something that should be stopped whichever way possible. Hopefully, will it be done through, if you want to say, non-aggressive means. But that's what we're hoping happens. Beyond that, all I can say is that when the State of Israel was recreated, it was recreated in order to provide not only a home but a safe haven for Jews around the world who had been persecuted for 2,000 years and culminated in the Holocaust. The Holocaust was not the reason for the creation of the State of Israel. The fact that the State of Israel did not exist is what created the Holocaust. And what I mean by all this is very simple. The State of Israel was created in order for Jews to have the ability to defend themselves and not to make it easier for our enemies to destroy us. And you can take from that whatever you want. The pure and simple is that Israel has the ability to defend itself and defend its people, and it will do so.
Now, what's your prayer finally for this great nation of Israel?
The prayer is just to continue being what it has been for the past 64 years. It's an amazing modern miracle. This is a country that, against all odds, against tremendous adversaries, having to deal with terror, with the fact of the lack of natural resources. And yet, when you look at Israel today, it is an amazing country, tremendously successful. I just hope that we can continue doing so because I put my trust in the Israeli people. And even though I'm not religious, I have to say, when you see all that we've achieved and know from the inside how this country is run, you have to believe in divine intervention. There's no other explanation for it. So I can just hope that we continue doing the right thing and doing the proper thing and continue to have God's grace.
Okay, Daniel Seaman, thank you very much.
Thank you.